My name is Harry, and I'm from London.
Meghan Markle here.
Today is June 8th, 2023. It is 1:07 a.m. I'm continuing with Harry witness statement. I believe I'm supposed to start on, I believe it was page 12. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start on the last paragraph of page 11. Okay, I think I read page 11 already, but I'm gonna read the last paragraph and then read as much as I can within an hour. Okay, 42, page 11, paragraph 42. As the first and third letter confirm that Mr. Barrymore had my mother's landline number, it is safe to assume that they were in contact over the phone, giving my mother's very hectic schedule and the months leading up to her death in 1997. I think it is also safe to assume that she will have been exchanging voicemails with Mr. Barrymore about his problems and their plans to meet up. In light of what she says in the second letter about being devastated to find out that the Daily Mirror had somehow discovered details of their private meetings and being horrified at the thought of Mr. Barrymore thinking that she had leaked the detail together with Mr. Morgan's reference to secret meetings, I can only assume this information had been obtained via voicemail interception and or other unlawful information gathering such as live landline taping. 43. Again, the thought of Piers Morgan and his band of journalists earwigging into my mother's private and sensitive messages in the same way as they have me, and then having given her a nightmare time 3 months prior to her death in Paris makes me feel physically sick and even more determined to hold those responsible, including Mr. Morgan, accountable for their vile and entirely unjustified behavior. Okay, articles under complaint. 44. My solicitors have advised me that where more than 50 articles are pleaded by a claimant in this litigation, 25 articles must be selected by each party for initial consideration by the court. I have dealt with the 50 articles selected by both me and MGN below in chronicle order. These are numbered by reference to my amended particulars of claim. 45. To determine this witness statement, I have been through each of the articles highlighted with my solicitor on a series of video calls in January and February 2023. To a very small extent, this exercise has refreshed my memory, but I do remember a lot of what was going on throughout the relevant period, including the incident or stories referring to in the articles below. And if I don't recall seeing the specific articles at that time, I set out my recollection and knowledge of these events and the impact of the articles in the paragraph below. The list of documents refers to both the text only and as published version of the articles to the extent that these have been disclosed by the defendant. Article 4, Diana so said on Harry Big Day, Mirror 16 September 1996, John Todd. Okay. 46. The article, which was published on page 2 of the Daily Mirror and features a photograph of me at the top, contained detail of my mother coming to visit me at Look Grove School on my 12th birthday, including how long she spent at the school with me. It also includes a quote from a couple who were walking on a nearby footpath that report my mother's seemed to have been crying and looked stressed. This section of the article makes no sense to me. It's my recollection that when my mother collected or visited me at school, she will be literally in and out of the front door of the school while there is a public footpath next to Log Grove. I'm not sure how anyone would have been able to see my mother from there and establish that she was upset, or why anyone would have stayed there long enough to be able to say she was only inside for 20 minutes. I am told by my solicitor, Mr. Todd, the journalist byline on the article is known to have been a user of commercial and legal services. 47. The article also revealed that I was distressed at the ill health of Paddy Whiteland, a gardener that used to work with my father, who we were all close to, along with saying that I was taking the divorce of my parents badly. I think it's quite ironic for the defendant journalist to be remarking on how difficult I was finding this period, when articles like this and the conduct of the press include the defendant journalist contribute to that feeling while I was sheltered from a lot of press coverage by my family. I recall seeing the odd headline in newspapers at this time, as copies of the newspapers were based in the royal residences, and obviously other children at school talk about things they've seen or read. Having every detail of your family life play out publicly is particularly difficult as a child. Knowing now that the defendant's journalists were hacking everyone's telephones and private communication makes it even more distressing and unethical. 19.6 The Hills for Gala, Mirror 17, July 2000. Ian Miller. 48. This article, which was published on page 9 of the Daily Mirror and written by Ian Miller, reports that my brother and I would not be attending the Gala pageant to celebrate the 100th birthday of great-grandmother, the late Queen Mother. I understand that Ian Miller is known in this litigation for being involved in the instruction of private investigators. I am told by my solicitor that he was a frequent user of commercial and legal services and also used JJ Services and Searchline, all entities known to have engaged in unlawful information gathering techniques. He also appears in Steve Whittemore contact list seized by the ICO in March 2003, which I understand to be significant. Okay, I see what he's saying. Okay, certain people who wrote certain things and their connection to where they have been proven they were doing illegal stuff. Okay, I think I understand. Okay, 49. The article states we were sticking to our controversial plans to join friends on a trip to the Lake District, 270 miles away from the event, and that we will return to London for her actual birthday on 4 August. The article includes a comment from a spokesperson from St. James Palace that stated the decision had not caused ripple in royal circles, and confirming that it was a private matter that no one in the family was upset about. Okay, 50. I don't recall this article from a time, but I do know I didn't attend the pageant. What strikes me about this article is that the comment from St. James Palace make clear that the decision as where William and I will be was a private matter. Proactive palace statement were made only on special or important occasion. I do not believe a statement will have been made for this. To me, it seems like the palace were approached with information about a possible fallout from the decision for us to miss the event, which they then responded to. It's only now, looking back with the benefit of hindsight of knowing what the defendant's journalists were doing, that you question how they got this kind of information to put to the palace at all. Okay, 21, 3 a.m. Harry's time at the bar. Mirror, 19 September 2000. Jessica Cullen, Evan Simpson, Polly Graham. Okay, 51. This article contains detail of a lunch I had with a friend at the Field Pub in Chelsea to celebrate my 16th birthday. It was published on page 19 in the Daily Mirror 3 a.m. column, written by Jessica Collin, Eva Simpson, and Polly Graham. I don't know how anyone would have known I was at this particular pub at this particular time in order to be there taking photographs of me based on what I understood at the time of how public engagement worked and the security measures in place for me and my family. I always found these kind of coincidences to be odd. I now understand that the byline journalists and the 3 a.m. desk as a whole are well known in this litigation of being involved in phone hacking and other form of unlawful information gathering. Okay, unlawful information gathering. Okay, UIG. My solicitor have advised me that many 3 a.m. articles authored by Miss Callan have previously been admitted by defendant to have been the product of, what was it again? Unlawful information gathering. What was it when Omid testified? And I think I did put some tweets from one of the people I follow on online on Twitter. Says something about the 3 a.m. thing. I don't remember exactly what he said. I think he was he in school around that time and he was an intern there? Okay, but let's not waste time. Okay, let's continue. 52. What struck me about this article is the comment that a week before I had insisted that one of my PPOs join me and a friend when we had lunch at Pizza Express. I'm thinking of Andrew Pizza Express. I'm unsure of how the defendant journalist could have been aware of any private conversation between me and my personal, I think it has to do with bodyguard or something like that, PPO, but it is notable because it's another example of the defendant seeming to know where I was at a particular point in time. Private visit to restaurant with friends were never publicly announced. In fact, our movement were always intended to be kept secret, nor did this kind of thing fall within any official duties. Yet, not only did the defendant seem to know where I was at all times, they felt able and entitled to report it to the public without any regard to my security or any private life I wish to have, even at the age of just 16. That's the thing. Age 16 is a minor. I think. What is the legal age of consent in the UK? This is why these people want to lower the age of consent, because they want to intrude. Not, if you've been following me and you've read some, you'll see some of the videos I have on PYTE where I did couple videos regarding age of consent. I think they're trying to lower it. What was it again? I don't remember. I did it a couple years ago. Is it 15 they're trying to lower it to? Oh my goodness. Okay, 22. Snap. Harry breaks thumb like William. Exclusive Mirror 11 November 2000. Jane Kerr, Royal Reporter. Okay, 53. This article, which was published on page 11 of the Daily Mirror, written by Jane Kerr, reported that I had chipped a bone in my thumb. My solicitor have shown me documentation that suggests Jane Kerr had previously instructed Jonathan Stafford, a private investigator known to have undertaken unlawful information gathering activities, to obtain directory detail for her. The article stated that I had my arm in a sling after having a minor operation following an incident during a game of football at school. It is stated that a friend fell on me during the game. The article included a comment from a palace spokesperson, which, according to the article, was given after my father had visited me, and stated that the injury was thought of at first as only bruising, but a precautionary x-ray led the surgeon recommending a minor operation. Okay, 54, the article itself reports that receiving a comment from the palace contrasts with the previous approach taken by my family, whereby my father had made a complaint to the Press Complaint Commission after the defendant had reported on a rugby injury I have sustained. Again, it seems to me that the palace may have been approached for this comment rather than a proactive statement being released, although I can be sure this, the level of detail and is just surprising as is the specific comment made by the defendant's journalist that I had been told by doctors not to play football for a few weeks. This isn't an attribute to the palace spokesperson, which seems odd, although any comments from the palace would have been strictly need to know. I certainly didn't want any information about my injury I had sustained being reported so publicly. They weren't life-threatening. They were routine childhood injuries. The odd broken bone. I was often teased at school, largely as a result of this kind of article. Wow. My goodness. You know, the thing that got me with this as I'm editing this video is that when Charles was in school, the school that Prince Philip had suggested, I think it was that one, I could be wrong, that had suggested him to go in, he didn't like it because the kids were teasing him and all of that. And this is the thing that Harry have been saying. Just because you went through it, that doesn't mean your kids have to go through it. So I'm pretty sure that when Harry come home, he probably told one of his parents about it. And wow, it's kind of sad to see this is the culture over there. And I'm sure Princess Diana will do something about it, or maybe she was trying to shield Harry from all of this. But then again, we do not know, because it is being presented in court. So if it goes to trial, we might have an idea, or we might know where some of this information were coming from. So it's not on trial yet. It is being presented to the court. So hopefully we'll get to the bottom of this. We don't know who was leaking it, if it was phone hacking or the information was being passed on to the tabloid. So we have a suspicion if it's not the phone hacking. All right, so let's continue.
My father used to say to me when I was younger, he used to say to both William and I, well, it was like that for me, so it's going to be like that for you. That doesn't make sense. Just because you suffered, that doesn't mean that your kids have to suffer. In fact, quite the opposite. If you suffered, do everything you can to make sure that whatever experiences negative experiences that you had, that you can make it right for your kids. We chose to put our mental health first. That's what we're doing, and that's what we will continue to do. Isn't this all about breaking the cycle? Isn't this all about making sure that history doesn't repeat itself? That whatever pain and suffering has happened to you, that you don't pass on?
27, Tiggy Legge-Bourke, Mirror, 3 September 2001, Wayne Francis. Okay, I'm in page 15. There's a lot. Okay, this article contains detail of me being asked to be godfather to the new baby of Tiggy, who, as set out above, was my childhood nanny. The article was published on page 15 of the Daily Mirror and carried a photograph of Tiggy walking with a pram, and was written by Wayne Francis. I understand that Wayne Francis is known in this litigation for his involvement in unlawful unlawful information gathering practices. The article also includes a quote from a friend which said Tiggy and my father had already discussed the possibility of me being named as godfather, but that my father needed to gain approval in certain quarters, along with a comment from a palace insider that my father was likely to say yes. It also states that I had already visited Tiggy and the baby. Wow. It is true that I was asked to be godfather by Tiggy, and while I'm not aware of any conversation that may have happened between Tiggy and my father, it is likely that it would have been necessary for her to ask permission, especially as I was 16, old at the time of this article already, I was beginning to feel extremely guarded about who I could talk to about my life because private and personal detail kept appearing in the tabloid and became common knowledge, and I couldn't understand who may have been talking to the press. I'm appalled that the article said it was a friend that gave the information, as if someone close to us was leaking private detail. I would have been unnecessarily suspicious of Tiggy, or suspicious that she had told someone and that person had told the press. But now, with the benefit of hindsight, it seems more likely that the defendant journalists were unlawfully intercepting private conversation about this. 30. Ruger of Harry, Sunday Mirror, 11 November 2001, Andrew Buckwell. 57. This article marked as an exclusive and published on page 39 of the Sunday Mirror revealed an injury that I had sustained to my back while playing polo, which had forced me to stop playing rugby. It reported that doctor had warned me that continuing to play could cause lasting damage to my spine, that it wasn't known when it would be safer for me to resume playing rugby, and that I had started to play football instead. I understood that Andy Buckwell is known in this litigation for his involvement in unlawful information gathering. Okay, and the habitual commissioning of private investigators, including Jonathan Stafford and Christine Hart. Okay, 58. I'm appalled by how brazen the article is in describing itself as an exclusive and attributing some of the detail to an unidentified royal source. In contrast to Article 22, which I discussed above, there's no official comment reported from a palace on this, so it's not at all clear to me how the defendant got this kind of information. 59. I find it shocking that the article reveals such specific detail and private medical information, including the advice that my doctors had given me, specifically as this is not the kind of information I was freely revealed to anyone, especially not my classmate. I suffer injuries just like everyone else that was playing a lot of sports at school, but it was only my injuries that were being splashed across national newspapers. Nobody else in my class was enduring this treatment. I wasn't reading these stories, but others at school were, and I was treated differently as a result. This happened at school, and later when I was at Sandhurst, I was often singled out for being a sick note, or there's the word, because articles like this made routine injuries seem like such a big deal. Okay, so what Harry's doing here, he's highlighting every article that was written about him. So many of these information were private information. I understand now. Okay, and I'm glad there's something I said in the first part when I was reading, and something told me not to put it. I removed it from the recording. So now I understand. So many of these information that were splashed all over the articles, the newspaper, these were private information, like your medical doctor, your injuries and all of that. These are private information. How did they get it to put it out there? That's what, okay, now I understand. Okay, 31A, Harry took drugs, page 1, and Cool It Harry, page 11, Sunday Mirror, 13 January 2002, Gerard Guzens. 60, these articles were appeared on the front page of the Sunday Mirror and on page 11, reported on allegation that I had been taking drugs with friend at the Radbourne Inn. They were a follow-up story on a series of stories published by the News of the World, where members of the staff at the News of the World had presented my father with a story about my habitual drinking and cannabis and cocaine use to get an exclusive, softer story from the Palace Press Office. Okay, this story was picked up in various later editions of other newspapers. I understand that Gerard Cousins is known in this litigation for his involvement in unlawful information gathering practices and the habitual commissioning of private investigators, including Jonathan Stafford, TDI, and JJ Services, and that at least 2 of his byline articles have previously been admitted by MGN to have been the product of unlawful information gathering. Okay, 61. My solicitors have shown me a series of invoices relating to my associate and close friend Guy Pelly, as well as people connected to the running of the Waterborne Inn itself that were commissioned by the Sunday Mirror at this time, presumably to try and find out more about the time Guy and I spent together at Waterborne and whether there had been any repercussion for him. The fact that the defendant journalists were trying to drag some of my friends into this and name and shame them sickens me. They weren't in public eyes, yet they were thrust into it just by being a friend to me. They became instant target, a common theme for all my friends and girlfriends. Not only did I have the stress and worrying about who I could trust with any personal detail about myself, but I also knew I had to worry about anyone that I was close to becoming a target for the defendant. Wow. Anyone that he talked to, he hang out, they just drag them to the, oh my goodness, this is really sick. 33. Harry's cocaine, ecstasy, and GHB parties, Mirror 14, January 2002, Jane Kerr and Jeff Edwards. Again, this article, which appeared on the front page of the Daily Mirror, was a follow-up story on the series of stories published by the News of the World. This article takes the story further and reports that my friend or those I mixed with were taking harder drugs, including ecstasy, cocaine, and GHB. I think the headline of this article purposefully misleading, as it seems to suggest that the parties referred to were held by or hosted by me, even though the article later reported that I had told my father that I had only smoked cannabis sniffs. Okay, what's notable to me in this article when reading it now are the quotes attributed to my father. Wow. Including that he was very sick, okay, there's the quote here, and hugely relieved, that all these are in quote. When I told him I had only used cannabis, my father didn't make any direct comment to the press. A statement was made by the palace in response to the News of the World story. This was handled by a tight, small team internally, so it is not clear to me where the defendant's journalists could possibly have obtained these quotes from. The articles also report that police began an investigation on the order of Prince Charles, which I do not believe is true, so it makes me wonder with hindsight if the defendant's journalists heard something they were not intended to, so it makes me wonder with hindsight if the defendant's journalists heard something they were not intended to and got the wrong end of the stick. 63. The article reported that I was now rarely allowed out without the presence of either my father, William, 19, my father, or trusted friend, although there's no explanation of how they learned this information. There's also a quote from an unidentified family source that said, I realized I had been a bloody fool, that's in quote, and that I had been, quote, sucked into this set of people in their 20s, end quote. I'm at a loss as to who would have said that. That's certainly not something I was saying to anyone. Okay, 64. This article, along with NOTW coverage, had a huge impact on my life. Ethan had a zero drugs policy in place, and I was extremely worried I was going to be expelled. Okay, 65. This article were also written at a time when there had been an agreement between the press and the royal family following the death of my mother that my brother and I should be able to go through our education without constant scrutiny and interruption. It seems to me there was never any let up in the press coverage of every detail of my childhood by the defendant journalists and others. Wow.
Pages devoted to stories the paper hadn't even published. And on one side at least, it all got pretty personal.
Mr. Morgan, why can't you simply leave Prince Harry alone?
We do leave Prince Harry alone. That's my fundamental point about this.
No wonder why he's protecting his kids so well. Okay, those things, he wants his kids to live their lives, you know, whatever mistakes they made, let it be just private. They could deal with the wrongdoings of childhood or whatever privately. Everybody don't need to know. Okay. 38. Heavy 6 with kissing disease. Mirror 29, March 2002. Jane Kerr, Royal Reporter. 66. This article, which appeared on the front page of the Daily Mirror, marked as exclusive and continued on page 4, revealed that I had contracted glandular fever. It reported that doctors had confirmed the diagnosis following a blood test some 2 weeks prior, that I will have symptoms for at least 6 weeks, and that I had been teased by my friend and brother. Oh my goodness, his brother was even teasing him. My goodness. A St. James Palace spokesperson is also quoted as confirming that a doctor had signed me off as a fit enough to join my father and brother on a skiing trip. 67. The article is accurate in that I was diagnosed with glandular fever at this time. However, I'm not sure how anyone outside my immediate family knew this. Wow. This should be private. Okay, I didn't tell anyone as I was ashamed of having contracted it. It's one of those infections that had a huge stigma attached to it when you're a teenager, which is exactly that the article itself is playing on, and the impact on me was huge. Whenever anyone got it while we were at school, there would be teased endlessly whenever people knew. And this article made sure the whole country knew about my diagnosis. The whole school seemed to know. No one would go near me, and I was a bit of a laughingstock. I felt miserable. Wow. The timing of the article was also horrible, as was reported. I was about to go skiing, which is a sociable activity, so it couldn't have come at a worse time. That is sad. Wow. Okay, 68. I do not believe that the palace put this information out freely. I think they responded to information that was put to them. Glandular fever is not a life-threatening infection. There was no need for information about my medical condition to be publicly broadcast by the defendant's journalist. This is an example of articles that seems to be typecasting me into a particular role within the royal family. I was being made to look irresponsible or reckless. Even affection that is commonly amongst teenagers was somehow being portrayed as something that was my fault, that I brought it on myself. Okay, 42. No eaten trifle for Harry. 18. Mirror, 16 September 2002. Jane Kerr. Okay, 69. This article, which appeared on page 7 of the Daily Mirror, reported details of the way I celebrate my 18th birthday, which included a low-profile lunch with my father and brother at home, and detail of the present my uncle had gifted me. Yeah, that should be completely private. How will they know that? Okay, 70. As I was turning 18, I was obliged to give an interview which was released to the press, and many of the details were repeated in this article, although I am not sure of how much of it is reported here. This was absolutely an ideal occasion for anyone listening into my messages to continue to do so in order to discover what additional private information could exclusively be reported. Okay, so I see what he's saying here. When he turned 18, he was put out there. He had to give a public statement. This is where the newspapers could write whatever it is that they want based on that public statement that he made. But they went further than that. Okay, things between family and things like that, they went probably listen to his phone call, to listen to what he was saying, and then to add to the thing. Okay, this was supposed to be private. Okay, it's almost like when you see them outside, let's say when Meghan went to receive the award. Okay, from the time they get out of the car into the building, you could take as many pictures as you want. Okay, and even inside the building where the thing was taking place, if people had, if the event had camera people, photographers taking pictures, is all good. And then from the time they leave the event, go into the car, the minute they are in the car, that's it. Okay, the public event is done with. Okay, now they're probably worrying about the kids, what the kids were doing, or they're waiting for them, or they're having a good time. Did they give whoever was watching them a hard time? This kind of thing. Now they are in parenting mode, or maybe they were gonna go to dinner afterward. Okay, so from this point on, everything is done. Is stop. I don't need to know. You don't need to know. The public don't need to know. Okay, they done their public duties. That was it. Okay, so this is almost the same thing here. They go out there when he turned 18, they give a public statement, okay, for the people, whatever it is that they do in the UK, they did that. Okay, the public service announcement is done with. But those journalists went further. They possibly, allegedly, tap into his phone to know more details or something like that, whoever phone number that they have. Okay, next, let's continue. 43, plot to rob the DNA of Harry. The People, 15 December 2002, Dean Roswell. Case 71, I guess that has to do with if Charles is his father or something. Okay, 71, this article, which was published on page 4 of The People and was written by Dean Roswell, reported a plot to steal a sample of my DNA to test my parentage. I now understand that Dean Roswell is well known in this litigation as having used unlawful information gathering techniques himself, and also habitual commissioner of private investigator, including JJ services and commercials and legal services. 72, numerous newspapers had reported a rumor that my biological father was James Hewitt, a man my mother had a relationship with after I was born. At the time of this article and others similar to it, I wasn't actually aware that my mother hadn't met Major Hewitt until after I was born. This timeline is something I only learned of it around 2014, although I now understand this was common knowledge amongst the defendant's journalists at the time when I was 18 years old and had lost my mother just 6 years prior. Okay, just 6 years earlier. Stories such as this felt very damaging and very real to me. They were hurtful, mean, and cruel. I was always left questioning the motive behind the story. Were the newspaper keen to put doubt into the mind of the public so I might be ousted from the royal family?
When racism as such, as a philosophy, kicked in, was as a direct reaction to the abolitionist movement. The abolitionist movement driven by some of the leading intellectuals of the day, as well as driven by hundreds of thousands of ordinary people in this kingdom who signed petitions after petitions and presented them to the House of Lords. When the abolition movement really kicked in from the 1780s onwards, the planters had to respond. And so this is where you get the most virulent imagery about brutal, pagan, bestial.
But the media is a powerful force.
Keen to put doubt into the mind of the public so I might be ousted from the royal family.
Black people in the literature and in the imagery.
Cartoons portraying black people as licentious and depraved began to circulate.
But the media is a powerful force.
Keen to put doubt into the mind of the public.
The anti-abolitionist Edward Long wrote,
"The lower class women in England are remarkably fond of the blacks. In the course of a few generations more, the English blood will become so contaminated with this mixture as even to reach the middle and then the higher orders of the people. This is a venomous and dangerous ulcer that threatens to disperse its malignancy far and wide until every family catches infection from it."
But the media is a powerful force.
To the mind of the public so I might be ousted from the royal family. Wow. Wow. Whew, this is hard. And there's something I said on part 1 when I was recording. I had to remove it because I completely understand why these doubts were being put out there. I understand. And I have a feeling who probably was putting these out there as well. Okay, 73. Of particular concern to me in this article are the comments from the highly placed royal sources which provided detail of how the alleged plot will have been carried out, and more importantly that my DNA will be sold abroad. I'm not sure from where or who these comments were obtained from, because they feel like a huge security risk, effectively putting a price on my DNA for anyone who could obtain it. I firmly do not believe that these are details anyone from within the palace will have shared, given the measure put in place for the security of all members of the royal family. My solicitors have also shown me 3 contribution request payment to Gavin Burren of, what is that, IIG, I don't know what is that, Europe Limited, for £5,000. This one with the reference Prince Harry Special. Wow. And which was approved by the editor Neil Wallace, £1,000 and £250, right? Am I reading right? Yeah. When I'm reading the dollar sign or the money sign, the pound sign, I should say, and UK, I had to stop because it's not common to me to read it. Okay, I don't know. Okay, so it's £1,000 and £250, which give their dates seem to relate to this article. I believe these show that MGN were using unlawful means of gathering information about me for this article. Okay, I see what he's saying here. Okay, 44, quote, plot to steal Harry DNA, Mirror, 16 December 2002, Harry Arnold. Okay, 74, this article is as follow. On of the article detail above, written a day later, this article elaborates on the money that could be obtained from obtaining my DNA and selling it on to a foreign newspaper. It reports that St. James Palace believed my DNA was to be offered to a foreign newspaper for tens of thousands of pounds. Again, I do not believe this information will have been put into the public domain by anyone at the palace, given the security risk this poses. Okay, 75. The article also reports that Spain was thought to be a strong possibility for the location of the honey trap to take place. Oh my goodness. Again, I'm not sure where the defendant journalists will have got this information from. Wow. 47. Harry, I'm going to join army. Sunday Mirror, 5 January 2003. Rupert Hammer. 76. This article published on page 9 of the Sunday Mirror and written by Rupert Hammer reveals detail of private conversation I had with my father about my future, mainly that I didn't want to go to university and would rather join the army. No wonder why he had to write his book, The Spare, because so many of these stuff were being written about him. Oh my goodness. Okay, there's a surprise amount of accurate detail in the article, which include the series of heart-to-heart I had with my father, that my father had wanted me to go to university as my brother had done, and his feeling about my academic performance to date with my impending A-level result. Okay, I remember Princess Diana was saying about the A-level. I mean, I don't know how it works in the UK, but I'm assuming A-level would be maybe going to university. So Princess Diana had said something. They thought she was stupid because she never had an A-level kind of education or something like that. I have the clip, I'll put it.
I was portrayed in the media at that time, if I remember rightly, as someone, because I hadn't passed any O-levels and taken any A-levels, I was stupid. And I made the grave mistake once of saying to a child I was thick as a plank in order to ease the child's nervousness, of which it did. But that headline went all around the world, and I rather regret saying it.
Okay, A-level result and my reference for joining the army over the Navy or Royal Air Force after taking a gap year. The option of joining the Welsh Guard was also something we discussed. Wow, so they have this information to the T, I guess. They intercept those information. Well, no, if Harry's talking to his father face to face, how will they get that? This is the thing here. Okay, 77. It wasn't just my father I was discussing this with. At the time, Mark Dyer was like a mentor to me, and we discussed a lot of options for my future career. As I really valued his option and experience, I will have reported back to him on the conversation I had with my father, likely to have been on the phone and in voicemail, as I was still at Eton where I boarded. Okay, so these, yeah, okay, I see. Okay, 78. What struck me about this article is the sheer number of quotes allegedly coming from a senior aide, a quote royal source, quote friend of mine, and quote associate, okay, and quote of my father's. I certainly wasn't talking openly to my friend or the palace about this kind of things. It would have been only a few people that I trusted the most. Articles such as this were part of the bigger picture that the defendant journalists and other tabloids were constantly peddling, that I was not bright, struggling at school, ethical. I became convinced that myself, wow, and I knew others around me thought it. I was always worried about how this preconception that people had from the tabloid will affect me. Because of this, I wasn't openly discussing my future plan. I wasn't always sure what was open to me or how people would judge them. So the number of quotes in this article feels very suspicious to me. I wasn't talking to Tiggy Legge-Bourke about any of this, so I'm not sure why he's mentioning at all. That also feels suspicious to me. All right, 79. I now understand that Rupert Hammer is well known in this litigation as having been a habitual commissioner of private investigators, including JJ Service, Jonathan Stafford, Searchline Commercial, a legal service, and TDI ELI, so some abbreviation, okay, and that at least article by line to him have previously been admitted by MGN to have been the product of UIG. My solicitor has informed me that despite the story identified 5 different anonymous contributors, the defendant only paid one person, which in view makes it very suspicious. Okay, so if this goes to trial, okay, so Harry is laying his case here. All those articles, these are private information. If this goes to trial, all these people he's mentioning here, okay, they're gonna have to come and testify and say, how did you get the information? These were private information. How did you get that? Now I understand. Okay, now I understand. I'm glad I took that other thing out. Okay. 80. Articles such as this, which claim to have comment from people close to my life, contributed to the general feeling of paranoia that I was so used to living with, a feeling of not being able to trust anybody, which I explained in more detail above. It's bad enough at any age, but looking back, 18 years old is so young to feel constantly suspicious of everyone around you. At various points, I doubted the loyalty of Tiggy, wow, Tiggy Legge-Bourke, and even Marco, who I really look up to. My brother and I even stopped talking to Marco for a long period of time. It was upsetting to be questioning someone who plays such an important role in my adolescence, and I felt as though I knew I could trust him, but on the quote, on the nose, and quote, information appearing in print that only he knew about convinced us otherwise. It was so conflicting. It only now realizing what the defendant journalists were doing and how they were getting their information that I can see how much of my life was wasted on this paranoia. Wow. I've always heard people refer to my mother as paranoid, but she wasn't. She was fearful of what was actually happening to her, and now I know that I was the same. Wow, what a great way of removing that stigma that this other brother put out there about his mother.
I would like to thank Lord Dyson and his team for the report. It is welcome that the BBC accepts Lord Dyson's findings in full, which are extremely concerning. That BBC employees lied and used fake documents to obtain the interview with my mother, made lurid and false claims about the royal family, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia.
And Harry just really right there just recover Princess Diana's sense of self. Good for you, Harry. Good for you. Okay. Let's see here. 50. Matured Harry is a Godfather. The People, 20 April 2003, no byline. Okay, 81. This article, which appeared on page 25 of The People, report that I was asked to be godfather to the son of Harry Legge-Bourke, the brother of my former nanny, Tiggy, and that Harry had already sounded the idea out with his wife, okay, Iona, who had agreed I was now adult enough to cope. Okay, that was in quote. Let's see. Iona, who had agreed I was now, quote, adult enough to cope, end quote. It include my father's thought on the matter. My father's thought. That's a very, very good way of putting it. How will they know how somebody was thinking? Okay, which were attributed to a quote from a royal insider. Okay, it was reported that my father was keen, okay, that's in quote, on the idea that he hoped it will be, quote, the making of me, okay, the making, okay, that was in quote, of me, and that he wanted to increase my sense of duty. Okay, 82. It is true that I was asked to be godfather, but again, I'm not sure where these comments will have come from. These kinds of private matters were not released into the public domain freely, usually only revealed at a christening if the press were covering it. I don't believe my father was widely discussing his views with anyone outside of the family. This is another article that contributes to the narrative set by the defendant journalist that I was irresponsible in some way and that all my family were somehow desperately trying to find ways to keep me in check. Wow. So all these people gonna have to come and say, how did you get this information? Okay, so this is what Harry's laying out. So all of these were private information. How would they put it out there? Okay, it was said also where, you know, Tiggy and all those people he looked up to, his mentors, and he was starting to doubt them. Okay, 83. The quote from Harry Legge-Bourke also seemed unusual to me. It reads as though he's been approached to confirm the information because he is quoted as saying, quote, it's not really the done thing to talk about. Okay, it's not really the done thing to talk about these things, but we expect Harry to be at the christening, end quote. If he's quote as being unwilling to discuss the matter, where did the defendant's journalist gain the information that Harry and his wife had discussed it, and how did they know her views on my suitability for the role? I don't think this makes sense. Over the years, Harry and I came to have a slightly difficult relationship. I ended up feeling quite suspicious of him, which was awkward as I was the godfather to one of his children. How much stories like this fed into the distrust I had toward him, feeling difficult to say. Wow. Okay, 84. My solicitor has shown me a TDI invoice commissioned by Claire Collins for Pettifer-Bourke, Charles Pettifer, and Tiggy Legge-Bourke for £85. It is dated 15 January 2002, 15 months before the article. It seems to me that it is therefore reasonable to assume that the people had the means to hack Tiggy and her husband as a result, and likely continue to do so. I now believe that this is either how this article came about or was a means to glean additional info for the article after it appeared elsewhere. Okay, so, and they're doing all this hard digging thing, hacking into people's phone for this small amount of money. So they got a receipt, okay, with those information, the people that they were hacking. And they're so stupid too. They put the name of the people they were hacking, you know, within the invoice. I mean, I guess that's the best way to do it, but they can use another somewhat of a code name. But let me not give people ideas and when they do this kind of thing. My goodness. Okay, 51. Harry to lead cadet march, Mirror 29, April 2003. No byline. Okay, 85. This article is led into the article detail below regarding the role of parade commander I was giving at the Combined Cadet Force, CCF, Tattoo at Eton. 52. Prince is in charge at parade, Mirror 29, April 2003. Steve Atkinson. Okay. This article, which appeared on page 10 of the Daily Mirror, contained detail of the role of parade commander I was giving at the CCF tattoo, which was held at Eton on 27 May 2003, not on the 29th May, as reported by the defendant. This was quite a big deal for me. It's considered an honor to lead the cadet and the parade, and I was quite excited at the prospect. Wow. He worked his butt off to do that, and then but anyway, let's read. My solicitors have shown me a statement made by the palace, which was published on its website. A copy, I mean, that's a lot of I was reading on Twitter that Harry doesn't have any proof and all of that. This is a lot of research. Okay, not only to highlight all those tabloid headlines, and then to back it up with receipt how this could have possibly be a hacking kind of thing. This is huge. Okay. 87. My solicitors have shown me a statement made by the palace, which was published on its website, a copy of which was provided by the defendant. It's my recollection that announcements regarding matters such as this weren't commonplace. Even though I was proud to have been given the opportunity, I would not have been enthusiastic about any suggestions of publicizing it for fear of a backlash, like I wasn't deserving or had been given the role because of who I am, rather than what I had achieved for myself. What seems unusual when reading this article is why the defendant's journalist presented the information taken from the palace statement as coming from Eton spokesman, as well as a spokesperson for myself, as though the information came from two separate places. I now understand that Mr. Atkinson, who authored this article, is known in this litigation to have commissioned the private investigators, commercial and legal services, and that at least one of his byline articles has previously admitted by MGN to have been the product of unlawful information gathering. Wow. Okay, Harry Tap Army Mark, Mirror 23, September 2003. No byline. 88. This short article, which appeared on page 10 of the Daily Mirror, reported that I had gained a top grade pass after sailing through the Commissioner's Board assessment for the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. Again, even though I was pleased with myself for my achievement, this is not something I wanted publicized, especially noting around a top grade pass for fear of a backlash. My goodness, he was working his butt off, but these people are messing it up to make people feel. Remember, William was always perceived as this bright man or whatever. He's very educated and all of that, but they always portrayed Harry as the dumb one. But here he is there working his butt off, okay, and he's getting top grade and all of that. And you know, I mean, this is something everyone would love to hear, but knowing the way they twist people's word and they twist wordings to make people feel and think different way. So I could see why Harry is saying this. Okay, 89. My solicitor have drawn my attention to the defendant's defense in respect of this article and the fact they have pointed to a statement from Clarence House the day before. As I have said earlier in this statement, announcements such as this were not commonplace, and often the palace was reacting to stories that had been put to them rather than them being proactive and releasing information. I can now recall the specific circumstances around this article and whether there were any discussion in this institution about this. However, reading the article now, I still feel uncomfortable about my achievement being laid out in this way. It was an emotional roller coaster just months before it was made to seem as though as wasn't clever enough. This is that. Exactly. You see, I didn't even read that. This is why he was worrying about this. They make you feel different way, like Harry wasn't smart enough to achieve that high level. Yeah. Okay. It was an emotional roller coaster just month before. It was made to seem as though as wasn't clever enough to pass the A-levels taken by millions of students across the country, and now I'm achieving the best grade for my choice of career. It feels like the tabloid were looking to find any way to build me up and then knock me down at every chance they had. Wow. I guess you could see it, you could understand why he's saying that when you look at the way they, the way they received Meghan when she first married into the royal family.
You met each other's families, I imagine.
Yes, his family's been so welcoming, and
You've met quite a few of them, actually.
I have, on both sides of his family, his mom's side as well, which has been really important to me too. But yes, the family has been great, and over the past year and a half, we've just had a really nice time getting to know them and progressively helping me feel a part of not just the institution, but also part of the family, which has been really, really special.
Trying to track them down and make sure that they're around at the same time that she's popping in without telling too many people. And so we've actually done incredibly well to make sure that you've met all the key people.
The same way they did to Princess Diana.
It's like being sucked in, just people pushing and then people pulling, all in the same direction.
So you're being what, pushed by family?
Yeah, my family looked great, and so did my friends, and so did Charles's family. They liked me. They were very good to me when I was a guest.
What's that mean?
We used to change when I was a daughter, and my positions changed.
They received them very well, and look at Charles walking Meghan down the aisle and all of that. Okay, so this is the same thing here. All right, they were looking to find any way to build me up. Okay, so they built Meghan up, seeing like she's welcome and all of that. They built Princess Diana up to feel like she is welcome, and then knock me down at every chance they had, which is what they're doing to Meghan right now and what they did to Princess Diana. And then look where the Princess Diana is. So this I could understand, and you could see the parallel of reality of that as well. I mean, that was Harry's reality, and still the same thing that's happening to Meghan, that is her reality. So this is the same pattern of things. This is the way these people are. Yep. Okay, 54. Harry is ready to quiz us. Mirror 27, September 2003. Jane Kerr, Royal Reporter. 90. This article, which appeared on page 7 of the Daily Mirror, written by Jane Kerr, with a photograph of me and a Stetson above it, report that I was considering leaving Australia, which I was on a gap year because of the level of press intrusion I was experiencing. The article includes a comment from a palace spokesperson expressing concern and disappointment about the treatment I was experiencing. I do recall that the palace issued a statement because the situation in Australia was awful for me, and there was supposed to be an agreement that once I had done the press call on arrival, I would be left to get on with my gap year in private. I was a teenager, and this made it clear that there was nowhere in the world, not even the Australian outback, where I wouldn't be hounded by the press or paparazzi. Okay, I remember reading this part in his book where he was talking about that. Okay, the most interesting part of this article for me is the line that I was staying inside watching videos, end quote, instead of working outside to avoid the camera crew. I'm not sure how they knew what I was doing inside. The whole purpose of me avoiding the cameras was to avoid everyone knowing what I was doing at all times. It was suffocating. I was only in Australia with a couple of UK bodyguards, so this is the kind of things I will have mourned about over the phone and voicemails. Okay, 92. My solicitor have shown me 2 contribution payment requests to Frank Thorne, which seem likely to relate to this article. The first date 24 September for £100. Oh my goodness. With the low amount of money for all of this. Okay, the first date 24 September for £100 with the description, quote, so that's where you got your hairstyle from, Harry, end quote. And the second date 26 26 September for £450 with the description, quote, Prince Harry Watch Hunter Valley Ellis, end quote. This suggests to me that MGN were using unlawful technique to gather information about me. With the second payment, seems to me like the defendant was paying to have me watched, especially with what I now know about Jane Kerr instruction of Jonathan Stafford as set out above. Okay, so he bring receipt for every, okay, he bring receipt of with each related tabloid that wrote about him. Okay, that's, I don't know, that seems significant enough for me. Okay, 57 Board Harry and Polo John, Sunday Mirror, 2 November 2003, David Rowe. Okay, this article published on page 8 of the Sunday Mirror report that after spending Christmas at home following the termination of my gap year in Australia, I will fly on to South America to play polo. My solicitors gave me a copy of this article to review, as I hadn't seen this exact story before when I was aboard on my gap year. I wasn't seeing or hearing about specific articles, but was just being briefed on coverage more generally when it was necessary. There was always a security risk with the publication of my plan and movement. You know what I'm thinking as I'm reading this? And some old tweet videos where I will say, I think Harry and Meghan have their lawyers looking through newspapers, and then when they see something that will catch their attention, they will bring it to Harry and Meghan. Okay, I think that's what was happening. Oh my God, I'm telling you, I need a freaking crystal ball for myself. Jeez, there's so many part of my life I want to improve. I wish I had the crystal ball for myself. But let's continue. Alright, every time I was getting off a plane or jumping in a car, I was looking in the rear view mirror, so to speak. I came to expect to be followed and papped by someone hiding in a bush somewhere. Everything felt as though I was under 24-hour surveillance. That remind me when I was on Harry and Meghan docuseries, there was a part they were showing them in the car. They couldn't even sit still because they were looking around to see who's following them. I mean, this is freaking, that's crazy. I mean, not crazy to them doing that, but to know that this is the level of they have to keep on watching over their shoulders. Who's following them? Who's doing certain things? My goodness, this is not life. My goodness. But anyway, let's continue. What strike me, okay, I'm actually almost an hour. I'm gonna read this and the next page, and then I will stop. Maybe tomorrow I'll continue. I wanna do something else. It's already 2 a.m. Okay, what strike me about this article is the quote from the royal aide regarding my plan to get a proper job in the rest of my gap year before I joined Sandhurst. This quote states that this job will be something in line with my mother's sympathies, perhaps working with the deprived. The timing of this quote is particularly interesting. I had already decided that I wanted to spend time assisting with aid project in Africa, as my mother had done. Internally, there had been some discussion about my option by the time of this article. Mark Dyer had suggested Lesotho to me. Oh my goodness, I feel like it's another angle with Spare. Okay, giving a little bit more insight. Okay, with Lesotho to me, it wasn't somewhere I've heard before, but he and I discussed it in quite some detail. I can't recall if we had taken this location for approval by the date of the article. Given my experience in Australia, these kind of details were on a strictly need-to-know basis, so I'm entirely unclear as to who the royal aide publicizing this kind of information will be. Oh my goodness. There's something I said on my first part of the William witness statement I had to remove because I have a feeling who probably was doing this. Oh my God. Okay, 95. My solicitor have shown me document that suggests that David Rowe, the journalist byline on this article, had frequently commissioned private investigators known within this litigation for this involvement in unlawful information gathering activities, including ELE, TDI, and Christine Hart, okay, ELI, okay, and Christine Hart had been advised that David Rowe was freelance when he wrote this and was paid £100 for the story. My God, I always said they were paid so little to do so much damages. Oh my goodness. If the story was a straight lift from another newspaper, why would the defendant pay a freelance journalist £100 for it? It makes no sense. I would have thought MGN would have had one of their own journalists lifted and housed to save themselves money. However, if he was paid £100, he must have provided something in return for that money. And my guess is that it was for unlawful obtained private information about me. Okay, and you know, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking like when Omid was giving his testimony and some other people, it seems within this trial, you know, I'm not over there for me to find what's going on, but not too many people is reporting it. Obviously, it has to do with the newspaper, so they're not gonna report about that. But the people that I follow, now I'm following new one because yesterday I was searching for something and I stumbled on someone else who's reporting about the trial and stuff. So the thing is that other testimony like Omid, people who have said those people have given information about the hacking, the phone hacking and all of that, also support Harry's claim, okay, as he's saying this stuff, okay. And the other thing I was thinking as well, before I lose that thought, is that Harry had to come in person. The reason I say he had to come in person, because a while back, I don't know where I was reading it, there was, I think someone was suing the paper, and they were doing like a electronic, like FaceTime or something like that in court. You know, the court, those newspapers have their peoples everywhere to do their bidding for them. So what they did is that the connection was messed up. Okay, so when the connection was messed up, so the person loses time, whoever was giving the deposition, and you know, via videotaping and whatever. So they never went back. They tossed out the case. So Harry had to come in person. So for something like that not to happen. I mean, God is good. Certain things happened before and then they learned from it, and which bring us to this. So I have a good feeling this might go to trial. This might go to trial. If it doesn't, I don't know, the whole world is gonna be, the world is watching. Let's just say the world is watching. And this bring, and another thing that I said on my last video, I don't want to repeat it again. This is why certain people had to go under the bus, to give you a hint, okay, so they don't get prosecuted, so they could be shielded by certain position that they are in. Okay, you could put one and one together yourself. I don't want to get sued about that. Right, 58, bitch bum Harry. Okay, did I finish this? Yeah. Okay, let's see here. However, if he was paid, yeah, I did with that. Okay, 58, bitch bum Harry, Mirror, 16 December 2003, Jane Kerr, Royal Reporter. 98, this article, 96, oh my god, 96, this article, which appeared on page 19 of the Daily Mirror, written by Jane Kerr and accompanied by various photographs of me and the sea, report that after leaving the ranch where I undertook work on my gap year, I had gone to the beach before resort of Noosa with some friends. I remember this day so clearly. We were staying in a house, and after visiting this Steve Irving's Crocodile Zoo in the morning, we had gone out on the beach in front of the house in the afternoon. It was a public beach, but not busy or popular, so I'm unclear how anyone had known we were there, to be in the right place at the right time to take photographs. I wasn't aware of anyone taking photographs at the time. Okay, 97. Wow, thinking about Steve Irwin, may he rest in peace. Okay, 97. I only learned recently that the Queen had asked one of her assistant private secretaries to fly out to Noosa and take a house down the road from where I was staying without me knowing. She was concerned about the extent of the coverage of my trip and wanted someone I knew to be nearby in case I needed support. Wow. The Queen. Okay. Okay. Now I understand it. What I'm editing. So Harry didn't even know they were reporting on him back in England. So the Queen was seeing what was being reported on the paper, which was supposed to be something private. Okay, Harry didn't even know they were taking pictures of him. So what the Queen did, because of what was being reported on the paper about Harry, okay, when Harry was this was supposed to be private, nobody's supposed to know it. So the Queen sent a bodyguard somewhere nearby to keep an eye on Harry just in case something were to happen. Okay, so now I get it. 59. Will's seeing Burrell is only way to stop him selling more Diana's secret. Harry, was it number Burrell? Okay, The People, 28 December 2003, Rachel Bletchley. No wonder why he's talking so much nonsense. So his name wasn't this. Okay, 98. This article, which appeared on page 3 and 4 of The People, revealed detail of private disagreement between myself and my brother regarding a proposed meeting with Paul Burrell, our mother's former butler. I now understand that Rachel Bletchley is well known in this litigation as having been a habitual commissioner of private investigators, including JJ Services, Searchline, Commercial, and Legal Services in Eli, or ELE, okay, ELI, and that at least 2 of her byline articles have previously been admitted by MGN to have been the product of unlawful information gathering. The article accurately set out the position that my brother was open to fix a meeting with Paul to discuss his ongoing expose about our mother. However, I had made up my mind about the kind of a person I thought Paul was and was firmly against meeting him at this point in my life. The best of my recollection, I do not believe a meeting went ahead in 2003. Okay, after this page, that's it. 99. Both my brother and I had a very strong feeling about how indiscreet Paul had proven to be with the way he had sold our mother's possession. Oh my goodness. Possession, and how he had given numerous interviews about her. We firmly believe that she would have expected some privacy and death. That's the thing. Harry understand that, but the other brother, what happened to him? Wow. We firmly believe that she would have expected some privacy and death, especially from someone she had trusted, and we were so upset at the way he was behaving. I didn't want to hear his reason for it. Therefore, our disagreement over how to handle the situation going forward was not something I wanted splashed across the defendant newspapers, and I had no idea how the defendant journalists obtained the information within the article. A senior royal source is quoted with the article reflecting my exact private feeling, including that I was dead against I was, quote, dead against any meeting, end quote, and that a meeting will be, quote, pandering to Burrell's attention-seeking and self-interest, end quote. I also will have used the phrase two-face. So the squad read that. I saw some stuff on Twitter about that. The squad read that. Oh my god, the squad or something. When they pick something out and then there's just one with it. I only saw that. I didn't know where to get it. Now I see where. I also will have used the phrase two-face, says this, as is reported, and believed this could have been lifted directly from a voicemail I had left. Oh my god. Okay, 60. Quote, polo trip next up for Harry. End quote. Mirror, 31 December 2003, Adrian Shaw. 100. This article appeared on page 9 of the Daily Mirror and carry a small close-up photograph of me. As with Article 57 that I have referred to above, this article contained detail of my plans. Spent some of my gap years in Argentina playing polo. Again, I'm not sure where the quotes from the source or will have come from. Detail of private meeting I was to have with my father, and his reaction to my plan was not the kind of information that was intended to be in the public domain due the security implication. this reminds me of something Princess Diana have said on the audio, where she spoke something privately with Charles, and then next thing you know, it was splashed all over the paper, and she was very upset about that and embarrassed about it. Yeah. And I think the thing that I say about this, because it was face to face, it wasn't something over the phone, it was private conversation between husband and wife, right? And then next thing, it splashed over. What I say happened, it's probably, in my humble opinion, Charles probably spoke to Camilla about it, and then Camilla went and, in my humble opinion, share it with other people. So there's a possibility the same scenario might take place here. Okay. All right. 101. However, my solicitors have shown me documentation that suggests Adrian Shaw, the author of the article, was regular user of private investigators known to have undertaken unlawful information gathering activities such as JJ service and commercial illegal services. Okay. 63. I'm so sorry, Papa. Mirror 23, October 2004, Gary Jones. Okay, paragraph 202. The article was published on page 7 of the Daily Mirror and contained a large photograph of me holding on to the arm of what I believe is one of my PPOs, Lauren John, as I tried to avoid swarming cameras and blinding flashes. It reports that I had apologized to my father following an incident with a paparazzi outside a nightclub. It was written by Gary Jone, the investigation editor of the Daily Mirror, who I understand is well known in this litigation for being a prolific commissioner of private investigators known to be involved in phone hacking and blagging of private information. These private investigators include Southern Investigations, JJ Service, Jonathan Stafford, Commercial and Legal Services, and ELI. Alright, so I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna try to cover other things, and then I'll pick up maybe tomorrow. And I'm up to page 25. Okay, page 25 and page 26 I will start here. All right, paragraph 103. All right, so that's it. Please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share. If you want to support this channel, there's a PayPal link and a Cash App link in the description. You could donate. Those who have donated, thank you. All right, and I'm gonna try to create a Patreon page, and so you guys could try to, who wants to support me. All right, so that's it. Thank you.
It is a great privilege to be with all of you today.
You know, we ask for forgiveness and please come back.
As you saw me find the love and happiness that I'd hoped for all my life. are all in this together. And if I may speak personally, we are all in this together. Because asking for help was one of the best decisions that I ever made. You will be continually amazed how life changes for the better.